order. Now call the Standing Committee on Public Accounts to order. My name is Kelly Regan. I'm the MLA for Bedford Basin and chair of this committee. A reminder to all of our participants here today to place our phones on silent. I'm going to ask committee members to introduce themselves, beginning with the Vice Chair, MLA Young.
Morning, everybody. Nolan Young, MLA for Shelburne.
MLA Taggart.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Tom Taggart, MLA for Colchester North.
MLA McDonald.
Thank you. Good morning. Johnny McDonald, MLA for Hants East.
MLA Sheehy Richard.
Good morning and welcome everyone. Melissa Sheehy Richard. I'm the MLA for Hants West.
MLA LeBlanc.
Good morning, everyone. Susan LeBlanc, MLA for Dartmouth North.
MLA Lachance.
Lisa Lachance, MLA for Halifax Citadel Sable Island.
MLA McGuire.
Good morning, everyone. Brendan McGuire, whatever.
And he is the MLA for?
Halifax Atlantic.
Thank you very much. MLA Barkhouse.
Good morning, everyone. Danielle Barkhouse, MLA for Chester St. Margaret's.
So before we begin with today's agenda, we do have record of decision from previous subcommittee meetings that I would like to deal with quickly today to get along so that we actually have some topics for future meetings. Is that okay with the committee? I see some concerns from, pardon me?
You're the boss.
I see some concerns from the Vice Chair, so I would like to underline the importance of ensuring that we do have topics selected by the end of today. So I will be looking for committee members when we move on to committee business to move along swiftly. Thank you very much. On today's agenda, we have officials with us from the Department of Finance and Treasury Board and the Nova Scotia Liquor Corporation regarding Phase 1 and 2 audits of the Nova Scotia Liquor Corporation. So I'm going to ask the witnesses to seasonal allergies to introduce themselves, beginning with the witnesses on the far right, my far right, Ms. Kumaranayaka.
Good morning. I'm Lalani Kumaranayaka, Associate Deputy Minister, Finance and Treasury Board.
Deputy Dean.
Good morning. I'm Kelly Ann Dean, Deputy Minister, Finance and Treasury Board.
Mr. Ingram.
Good morning. Michael Ingram, Director of Policy and Fiscal Planning.
Mr. DePercio.
Good morning. Dave DePercio, Senior Vice President of Corporate Affairs at the NSLC.
Mr. Hughes.
Greg Hughes, President and CEO at the NSLC.
And Ms. Duchesne.
Caroline Duchesne, Senior Vice President, Finance and Risk at the NSLC.
Thank you very much. And now I will invite Deputy Dean to make opening remarks.
Thank you, Chair and committee members, for this opportunity to talk about our ongoing work to implement the recommendations of the Auditor General as they relate to the Nova Scotia Liquor Corporation. Regulating the sale of beverage alcohol and cannabis is an important role of government. We have a social responsibility and many interests to balance. We do this with the NSLC. The NSLC operates as both retailer and regulator of alcohol products with responsibility for the receipt, distribution, regulation, and control of beverage alcohol and cannabis throughout the province. Our shared values include collecting revenue to fund much-needed public services, encouraging responsible consumption, ensuring trade compliance and fairness, and helping develop local sectors. The Department's close cooperation with the NSLC helps to shape public policy to meet these shared objectives. We have confidence in the corporation's management team and their ongoing commitment to making improvements to their operations, including making progress on the recommendations made by the Auditor General. The Department of Finance and Treasury Board has completed our single recommendation, which was to develop a process for ensuring government priorities as they pertain to the NSLC are clearly documented and effectively communicated to the organization on a regular basis. We provide direction through annual business planning and provide input into the NSLC strategic plan. The CEO provides regular updates to the Minister on NSLC initiatives. Through the year, the Department continues to document direction provided in response to issues. We are pleased that the NSLC has made significant progress on its recommendations as well, which Mr. Hughes will highlight. Last year, NSLC earned $284.7 million, which contributed to government's ability to fund important programs and services for Nova Scotians. NSLC generated this income in a socially responsible manner. Nova Scotia also has a responsibility to meet its trade obligations and agreements to ensure fairness for our companies globally. As you may recall, Nova Scotia's Emerging Wine Regions policy was among the programs at the centre of an Australian complaint to the World Trade Organization against Canada. They argued our policy provided preferential treatment to local producers and did not respect international trade rules, that wine from anywhere should be treated equally. As the dispute was underway, the decision was made to settle to avoid additional years of litigation with an important trading partner. Part of that settlement in 2020 was that Nova Scotia would phase out the Emerging Wine Region policy. This process has begun, and Nova Scotia is on track to meet the June 30th, 2024 deadline for completion. We are continuing to work closely with the Department of Agriculture as well as they develop new programming to support the development of the growing wine industry, as well as our innovative craft brewers and distilleries. Chair, we look forward to hearing more from Mr. Hughes and to addressing the members' questions today. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. Mr. Hughes.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to provide an update on our response to the Auditor General's report of the NSLC. Joining me, as mentioned earlier today, is Dave DePercio, Senior Vice President of Corporate Affairs, and Caroline Duchesne, Senior Vice President of Finance and Risk. We respect the work that's been done by the Auditor General and have accepted all recommendations made by both phases of this report. In April, the Auditor General reported that 7 recommendations from Phase 1 remained outstanding. Since then, I can report to the committee that 3 of these recommendations are now complete. At the NSLC, responsibility is at the heart of the organization. These completed recommendations will help us reinforce our efforts to ensure our products are sold in a responsible manner. This work included a review and update of our responsible retail training program and formalized the compliance and monitoring of this training. We have completed a review of our mystery shop program to ensure consistency in the delivery of responsible retailing. And this is done across all of our channels. The program monitors compliance with our ID verification requirements, helping to keep our products out of the hands of minors. We also completed an internal risk analysis to identify control issues related to the NSLC's permitting process. These recommendations are related to industry support and inter-provincial trade. These topics are complex and they involve some input from shareholders outside of the NSLC. These factors have required us to adjust the completion on some of our timelines. Despite this, significant progress has been made against each of these recommendations. 2 recommendations from the Phase 2 report have recently been reopened due to some outstanding documentation. The other 9 Phase 2 recommendations have all been addressed. We take pride in being collaborative and transparent with our business and as a business partner. We have a positive working relationship with local industry, NSGEU, our suppliers, and the Department of Finance and Treasury Board. This collaboration will ensure that the work will continue and all recommendations will be resolved. At the NSLC, our more than 1,800 dedicated employees work hard to create an exceptional experience for our customers and add value to the communities in which they serve. Our people truly are the key to our ongoing success. We continue to return 100% of our profits to the province and to Nova Scotians to support key public services. Last year, we returned $284.7 million to the provincial revenue. On top of this, our team comes together to support organizations that work to build a healthy and sustainable communities. We thank our generous customers, suppliers, and our employees for helping us complete this important work. We are proud of our contribution, and I consider it an absolute privilege to be part of this amazing team. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. We will start our first round of questioning, beginning with the Liberal Party. The time is 9:09, so Mr. Maguire, you have until 9:29.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
MLA Maguire.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can I, to Mr. Hughes, what was the revenue last year from marijuana sales in Nova Scotia?
Mr. Hughes.
The revenue from cannabis sales of cannabis last year was $111 million.
MLA Maguire.
Just 1 second. So my question is, why, so I know that the marijuana was legalized by the federal government, and the previous government decided the way to distribute it. So I just looked, like, just doing some research over the last couple of days leading into this. Nova Scotia has the highest percentage of marijuana usage in Canada, at 32.8% of our population, or 260,000. That was in 2018. So that's considerably, I think that's a little bit higher now, the population, with an average of 27.1 grams a year. So I've done a little bit of research, right? So the total revenue that you just said, or the sales that you just said, amounts to about $40 per person if you use the averages from Stats Canada. So my question is, where are they going if they're not going to? So this was supposed to curb access to illegal marijuana. I would say from my own, just from what we know from being in the NSLC, that's probably about maybe 2 grams of marijuana. So where are they going?
Mr. Hughes.
I'll certainly comment on our distribution, and then I might pass it over to our shareholder and deputy, and because it's about the decision that was made in terms of the NSLC. It was before my time. I can tell you that part of our mandate it was to get the illegal sale of cannabis off the street. I think we've done a great job of doing that. Our original network looked at just 12 stores, which would not cover distribution, and quite honestly, it was quite expensive, those original 12. Our team has looked at ways to maximize distribution. We are now at 49 stores that carry the cannabis products, and we have a few more scheduled later in this fiscal year. We also offer home delivery. Currently today it's through Canada Post, and we are in the midst of trying to enhance that from a safety distribution perspective, and also just, quite honestly, just to get it a little bit smoother into customers' hands.
MLA McGuire.
So again, like, I know this is before your time, but I know some people that are here, and obviously the decision, again, was made previously. We look at Colorado, for example, and you and I have had this discussion. Last year alone, they had $1.8 billion in sales. Per capita, they're not even close to what Nova Scotia is. I think one of the things I've heard is how, and I'm glad that you touched on it, was how expensive these stores are to open up. So we have 12. We had 12 stores originally. We have 49 stores. What is the average build cost for a store, and then what is the average annual cost, including labor, to keep one of these stores open?
Mr. Hughes.
Thank you. Really good question. So totally agree with you that the original version would not have been financially sustainable. Our team looked at a more cost-effective way to put it, a store within a store. So we absolutely have to follow Canada Health guidelines in terms of how we operate under our 4 walls. But our average cost, and we can get you the exact number, would be close to probably $300,000 for the original setup. Early days, those 12 original stores, they were on average about $1 million. So we found a more cost-effective way to roll this out. I do believe we're getting to a bit of a crossroads of where we can put it in our existing footprint, just because of size. We have a lot of buildings that we own that have a limited space. So it's how to find that balance. But if you look at the map of Nova Scotia, you can definitely see that we do have coverage for all Nova Scotians if they're interested in purchasing our cannabis products.
MLA McGuire.
So that's the build cost. So the build cost, if we just go by the low end, which is $300,000, we know it's probably a little more than that with the original ones. So it's close to $14 million, but probably closer to 30 with the original cost of the 12 stores. So $30 million upfront cost to build these stores. Secondly, I didn't think I heard what's the cost, the annual cost to keep one of these stores running So do you know what the annual cost is to keep one of these dispensaries running is?
Mr. Hughes.
I wouldn't have that exact number. We can get it for you. Under our expenses, where we only have the one standalone cannabis shop on Clyde Street. All the other ones are underneath the same roof that we would sell alcohol. And so we don't break out that expense when we look at per unit, but we can and send it back to the committee if that's okay.
Thank you. Mr. McGuire.
So I would probably argue that the way this has been rolled out and the way it currently is sitting right now hasn't curbed the legal sales of marijuana. In fact, I think with the new federal legislation, the provincial policies on this, it's actually encouraged because I don't know when the last time I heard about somebody being arrested or raided or whatever for marijuana. So the reason I bring that up is because I do think it's a missed opportunity. I do know that in the community that I represent, there was when we had that, remember that we had that moment in time where nobody knew what we were going to do. And I know there was 2 shops that were set up legally, or kind of gray area in Spryfield. And I reached out to one of the owners, and his his revenue or his profit after everything was $80,000 a month is what he was making on the private end sale. And the other guy up the street was making about $110 a month. And I don't think we have that kind of, for some reason, I don't think people are going to the liquor store the way they were going to some of these shops. Like I remember driving by them every morning, there'd be a line up out the door for people waiting to get in, and I don't think we're seeing that. So why do you think? Well, what I think is, I think it's the same thing that has happened with the NSLC, which is location, 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 right? So I guess to expand on it a little bit, what I'm trying to get at is there an opportunity to have stores outside of the NSLC structure? Like we have, I'll use the example of the convenience store in Sambro, and I'm sure there's many in rural Nova Scotia that have, I don't know the exact term that you use, but the NSLCs in those stores. Is there an opportunity for that with cannabis sales? Because I think with cost of living, with inflation, with everything, these stores are struggling and businesses are struggling right across Nova Scotia, and I think it's an opportunity for them. So has this been discussed about potentially expanding to convenience stores or corner stores or?
Mr. Hughes.
I'll answer the first part of your question first, and then we'll just circle back to the end. So since we've been on the journey of legalized cannabis, one of the major items to combat the illicit market is the price per gram. And the bulk of our customers still want flower product, which is the bulk of our business. We've successfully, and working with our vendors, have been able to get the price just on average to just over $6 per gram. I do also believe that there's work to be done with work in terms of combating the illicit market. We too try to get as best intel as we can. But as you're probably aware, the illicit market does not report its financial statements. So there's a little bit of guesswork and estimates that have to happen. In terms of distribution, we are always looking at ways to enhance for Nova Scotians to get our product. We work closely with the shareholder in terms of what that would look like. As we sit here today, we are the only legal recognized agent that can sell cannabis products. But if we were to look into the future, who knows what that opportunity might look like. If I look at what the NSLC does on the alcohol side, we do have a great agency store network of, I think, just over 60 locations where they run the retail component themselves. Who knows, perhaps in the future that might be an option where we already have that partnership, but that would be a change to the laws that we have in the province currently today.
Mr. McGuire, you have 10 minutes left.
So
MLA McGuire.
I would say there is some information out there on how successful or not successful sales outside of the NSLC can be, and that would be the indigenous stores. So do you keep track of the sales in the Indigenous stores, and is that reported to the government on revenue and sales?
Mr. Hughes?
It certainly does not through the NSLC channel, but I'll ask the deputy for further comment from a provincial standpoint.
Deputy Dean?
Thank you. No, we don't have an indication of sales outside of the NSLC network.
MLA McGuire?
So nobody knows how much is being sold and what kind of revenue is being generated out of those stores? Nobody from the Department of Finance and Treasury Board, nobody from government knows? I'm just trying to understand.
Deputy Dean?
Sorry, through Indigenous sales.
So right now, Mr. McGuire, I had just said Deputy Dean, so she's got the mic.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just trying to get some clarity. Which stores are you referring to?
MLA McGuire.
Through Indigenous sales, yeah. So nobody know?
Deputy Dean?
Thank you. We do not have access to sales from Indigenous stores. I would have to check where that information might exist. At the Department of Finance and Treasury Board, we do not have that information. I can certainly check with colleagues at the Department of Justice or...
MLA McGuire.
Yeah, so the reason that I asked that is because that could, I would think, would inform the NSLC when it comes to expansion and how to expand. So I would think that would help, especially if revenue is higher or revenue is lower, if costs are higher, costs are lower. I suspect that costs are lower than running out of an agency or one of the stores. So I guess, do you foresee, Mr. Hughes, like, is there a plan for expansion? And does that expansion include, has there been discussion about agency stores throughout Nova Scotia?
Mr. Hughes.
Certainly, as I mentioned in my earlier comments, we are getting to a bit of a crossroads in terms of what we have for options at our stores, where we're just at 49 today out of our 110 corporate stores. So there'd be continuous discussions with the shareholder on how to evolve this. So we would agree that we're just partway on this journey. It's not done or over yet.
MLA McGuire.
And I'll change the topics in a second, but what I would say is that we're not reinventing the wheel here, right? With marijuana, it's access to marijuana. If it's the same thing with liquor stores, liquor stores and agency stores. When I was younger, there was no liquor store within the rural part of my community. So where did we go? We went to Joe's, the bootlegger. That's where we went. And then an agency store opened up, and guess what happened? We started going to the agency store. So right now, what's happening across Nova Scotia, and I think while we want to say that this is successful, I would say this is not even close to being successful. When the average user in Nova Scotia is spending $40 a year. That's what your stats show, right? And it's the average user is not paying, at your NSLC is not paying $6 a gram. They're paying probably closer to 20, 15, 20, somewhere around there, depending on what they get, right? I mean, I think you're probably including pre-rolled in that price too, right? So, yeah. So, so what I would say is that we have to take a good, long, hard look at this. This is a massive, massive revenue generator for a province that needs to make investments in healthcare and housing and things like that. People are using this product, and the best way for for the province to be able to, let's be frank, profit off it is to have access to this product at a reasonable price. And so what's happening right now, what's in the marijuana industry is I could literally make a phone call right now and have marijuana delivered to that door, and nobody's going to say a thing. And there's probably about 100 different options out there. So that access is not happening through the NSLC. And so what I would encourage is maybe just taking a look at the very, very successful rollout of our agencies and how that could help rural Nova Scotia, that could produce jobs, and that could actually bring income away from the illegal market into government coffers. So that would be my suggestion, and I think, and I'm no expert, but I just see how successful NSLC has been, extremely successful. It's one of the best places in Nova Scotia to work. I know lots of people that work at NSLC, they absolutely love it. It's great paying, and the pension benefits on top of it. There's lots of places to work. So I would encourage you to maybe potentially look at that agency and start picking and choosing where to expand to. I will shift gears now. So one of the things that I've heard from, we just had a local brewery closed down. The only brewery we had was in Spryfield. It just recently closed down. And one of the complaints that they had was how difficult it is to get his product into the NSLC. Jumping through hoops, and it was just so difficult. And in the end, was one of the reasons why he felt that he was unable to be successful. It is very, very difficult to compete with, I think he had Belgian beer. I don't drink, so Belgian beer, other brands of Belgian beer when you can't get your beer into the NSLC. So one of the questions I have is about streamlining local products. We know that from the wine industry has been very supportive, but we've heard a lot of complaints from our local brewers. So is there any plans to make this easier? And I know Ms. Dean just talked about having to settle, but is there any plans to make it easier for local products to be able to be sold in the NSLCs across Nova Scotia?
2 minutes. Mr. Hughes.
Thank you. Great question. We love local, and we win when local wins. And I would say the NSLC team takes it extremely personal when one does not succeed. So I can certainly speak to my tenure at the NSLC, which is just over 4.5 years, and the changes that we've made. So we have made it more user-friendly for local vendors. Each local vendor is guaranteed at least one SKU. We also have a program which we call Hyperlocal. It's kind of evolved a bit more of an acronym now, but which allows a craft brewer, in this case, in close to our corporate stores, could have a few more SKUs because that's where they have maybe a customer following. One thing that we can't influence with customers is they vote with their wallets. And if the product, and I'm not talking to that one vendor specifically, but just overall, we need to ensure that they're making products that our customers want to buy. Yeah. 1 minute.
Emily McGuire.
Yeah, I mean, again, I know that from the wine sector, and again, I'll say, like, I haven't been into NSLC in over 3 years, like, so, but I do know from the wine sector, it's been very successful, and they feel very supportive. So thank you for all that also. One of the things that I have noticed the last time I walked in, and I've had people say this to me, is that when you walk in, local products on some of these stores aren't on display right away. Like when you walk in, it takes a little bit of, like, I know the one in Spryfield, you got your Italian and then your French, and then, like, it takes a while to get to the Nova Scotian, and most people don't get down that far down the aisle, right? So are you allowed to, from a competitive standpoint, or is there a certain setup that has to happen in the liquor store? And if so, if not, why would we not put our local products first?
Mr. Hughes, you have 2 seconds. Order. There we go. All right, we'll now move on to the NDP for questioning. MLA Lachance.
Thank you, and thank you so much for being here. So first, a quick opening question for Mr. Hughes. I just want to catch up. So you said from the Auditor General's 2023 follow-up report that 3 out of 7 have been implemented. So that's 1.9 and 1.10, and then I missed the other one. And then in terms of phase 2, you said that 2 had been reopened, and I'm just wondering if you could clarify which 2 had been reopened.
Mr. Hughes?
I'll actually pass this one over to Mr. DiPersio.
Mr. DiPersio.
Good morning, thank you. So to answer the second question, from the report, Phase 2 report is actually the first 2 recommendations that have been reopened, and that was really due to some outstanding documentation related to our temporary listings, our one-time only product listing. The documentation was deemed appropriate for our general list items, which are our permanent listings, but we realized we needed to make some improvements to the documentation of the more temporary listings. So for that reason, those 2 were opened up. And with regard to phase 1, there was 3 that were closed. One related to the risk assessment of the permit office, so that risk assessment was completed by the NSLC. Training compliance, which we took probably the most serious from the Auditor General recommendations. That compliance program is in place for all channels of business. So that includes both our NSLC corporate stores, as well as our agency store partners, as well as the private wine stores, and now local producers. So we've expanded our training and compliance program to include all channels of access in the province of Nova Scotia. And the last 2 were really together, training, compliance, and mystery shopping. So,
MLA Lachance.
So in phase 2, recommendation 1.11 talked about essentially board governance. So making sure the competency matrix is updated in advance of board vacancies, identifying skills gaps, that sort of thing. And I wanted to ask about a recent appointment by the HR committee to the NSLC board, which include a past president and campaign co-chair of a political party. So, obviously these are positions with high responsibility. They're also well compensated at $1,000 a month, and I'm wondering what processes the board has in place to guard against partisanship in its operations. And this might be a question for Deputy Minister Dean. Are you consulted or do you receive suggestions from folks outside the department about appointments to the NSLC board?
Deputy Dean?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. So the process for selecting candidates for the NSLC is done through Executive Council office. So there is an ad that is placed, and anybody can apply through that process to become a member of any of an agency, board, or commission in the province. And so for the NSLC, there is a matrix, and there are different skill sets that NSLC is looking for and wants to make sure that there's gaps that are filled on the board. So we respect that, and we work with the NSLC on that. When those applications come in, they are screened to make sure that those people have the skill sets that would be required to be on the board of the NSLC. And then those screened-in candidates are proposed, and then it's the minister who makes a recommendation, and then, as you know, that recommendation goes to the HR committee, and it's also approved by Governor and Council. So that's the process, and we've adhered to that process for many years. It hasn't changed. So, what I would say is that we continue to follow that process in all of the board appointments.
MLA Lachance?
And so the skills gaps that are identified on the board, are those publicized?
I'll ask. Deputy Dean? That's okay.
I will ask Mr. Hughes if he wants to comment on that. I know that there is a framework that is in place so that we maintain, an accurate assessment of the various skills of the board members.
Mr. Hughes.
Yes, that is correct. So there is a matrix, and quite often the NSLC obviously does not pick who comes in on our board. I am the only employee of the NSLC board, but we do follow and would provide intel back to the shareholder if there's a gap. So if I think of the most recent appointment, I think that was made last week, there was a need for the NSLC to have an individual with a retail background, and that individual does. So certainly anyone that I've seen come in my 4+ years at the NSLC have all been great individuals that have the right thought in mind in terms of why they're serving on that board, and have been a great help for us and our management team.
MLA Lachance.
Thank you. And I mean, I'm sure that everyone who's put themselves forward have been great candidates. I just, when I think about recruitment for nonprofit boards, for instance, there's often a lot of transparency. So you'll see a board say we're recruiting for general members or for someone with a communications background or an accounting background. And I certainly am quite familiar with the ABC appointment process. The blanket ads don't provide that kind of specificity. Well, you know the word I'm trying to say. Anyways.
Specificity.
Thank you. Thank you. So I guess I'm just, you can see when the final recommendations come down to ministerial recommendations at the end of a process that starts public, but quite lacking details, and then ends with a ministerial recommendation that there might be questions about who was, sort of left off the list, and folks who maybe don't see themselves in the traditional AVCs. I mean, I think that's probably a subject for another meeting in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion in AVC appointments. So I just want to go back to then some of the recommendations from the 2023 report, and a number of them, were expected to be completed in March of 2023. So, so we're not there yet. And so maybe I'll start with recommendation 1.4, which is around establishing a process, including qualifying requirements for marketing products as proudly Nova Scotian, and to ask for an update on that process.
Mr. Hughes?
Thank you. That's a great question. The NSLC had actually started down a path of for in alcohol in particular, we do it in cannabis, but in alcohol in particular, identifying bottles on the shelves that are proudly Nova Scotian, so it's easier for the customer to identify. To take the biases out of it, we hired a third party and had customers actually come in and give us the feedback of what they would deem as local, which was a really good process. We were about ready to implement that, and with the change in government and a political commitment on focus of purchasing local, we wanted to slow that down and make sure that we had open collaboration with the shareholder to make sure that we were both aligned in terms of where we're heading. I would anticipate that you'll see that program launched very, very soon.
MLA Lachance?
And so thus, has that program then been rolled into the evolution of Nova Scotia Loyal? Is that what the implication is?
Mr. Hughes?
Yeah, I can't comment on that. I'm not sure exactly what the other program looks like, but I can tell you that we are collaborative and are sharing our customer intel through that third party back with the shareholder.
MLA Lachance?
I mean, just to say that, also it is perhaps concerning and disappointing that you were at the point of almost being able to launch your own program and have had to slow down for a program that hasn't appeared and for which we have no details. And I guess also like the role of, having the liquor corporation separate from government should be that, you should be making decisions, in my opinion, with the board around strategic directions that make sense to your industry and have that level of independence. That's disappointing that it hasn't launched yet, and I'll take, unless you can specify a little further on very soon, we can keep going in some of my questions. So you talked about, Mr. DiPercio mentioned, so in terms of the phase 2 audit in 2021, that the ones that have been reopened, 1.1 and 1.2, those recommendations, really are around product selection and listing. And so wanting to open that up to understand better in terms of local products and one-time products and that sort of thing, I think is what you mentioned. So do those recommendations, are they still open, or were they reopened in terms of policies? Are those policies now complete?
9 minutes. Mr. DiPercio.
Thank you. Yeah, the two outstanding recommendations remain incomplete, and as I said previously, the documentation of the processes is complete for our permanent listings, what we call our GL or general list items. But when we did a review of the documentation we had accumulated, we realized we still have more to accumulate on our temporary one-time only listings, and we are still working through that process to make sure the documentation is up to date. But I will say we have a fairly transparent process with our suppliers on how the listing and promotions work for the NSLC. We publish an annual promotions guide, which is available to all suppliers so that they understand in general the listing process, how it works, the promotional programs they participate in, and how they can work. So it's fairly detailed. It's about 40 pages in length, as I recall, and it's a publicly available document to any supplier who is interested.
MLA Lachance.
And when do you anticipate those policies to be finalized?
Mr. DiPercio.
Probably a couple of months.
MLA Lachance.
I'll keep working my way through some of these recommendations. So, we've heard a lot from folks in the craft beer industry and concerns about how several of the policies disadvantage local producers. Recommendation 1.5 it talked about looking at issues around the beer trade to assess benefit to Nova Scotia manufacturers and establish, clear policies that don't favor out-of-province manufacturers and support the development of our craft brewing industry. So I'm wondering, can you explain why this recommendation hasn't been completed? It's still been delayed. And what's the plan for moving forward on this?
Mr. Hughes.
Thank you. In particular, on the beer trade agreement that you referenced there, that involves discussions at different levels of government. It also involves discussions with ourselves at the NSLC, and in particular, some of our counterparts in the Atlantic provinces. So, as mentioned in my earlier statements, some of these recommendations, there's multiple stakeholders involved, and it takes a little bit of time. We are very close to having this completed, and we'll be reporting on that back to the Auditor General shortly.
MLA Lachance.
And through this process, have you been engaging with local stakeholders, and what have you been hearing, regarding the impact of this delay on their businesses?
Mr. Hughes.
Certainly, if this is specific to craft beer, we spend a lot of time with the Craft Beer Association. We actually help fund them to keep them profitable and operational, so they can actually have an association. We do not vote. We are non-voting members of those associations, but certainly our team would sit closely with the craft brewers of our province. We share intel with them in terms of what customers are looking for and insights. They are very aware of the shelf space that's given to them in our stores as well. And we all have to balance this off and be respectful as per what Deputy Dean had mentioned in her opening comments with the WTO challenge. So that was specific to wine, but I think we have to be very open and transparent. That is a level playing field, whether you're local or not, on our shelves.
5 minutes. MLA Lachance.
And so we talked about recommendation 1.10 and that training and the mystery shopper program have been evaluated and are monitored. Can you explain how, sort of what data you have in terms of sales to folks who are underage at liquor outlets in Nova Scotia?
Mr. Hughes.
Thank you. We take this extremely serious. Quite honestly, it's one of our major pillars. It's as equal to us as the amount of revenue that we generate and send back to our shareholder. I can tell you that it needed to evolve, and I think it was a very good recommendation from the AG team. Last year, I can tell you that we checked over 2.2 million IDs at cash, and 19,000 people were refused the sale of alcohol for being underage.
MLA Lachance.
And what about situations where, obviously it was found out sort of post haste, but that a young person had been able to buy alcohol at an NSLC outlet? Do you have figures on the average annual amount of cases that are reported to you, acknowledging that obviously you would probably not receive the majority of reports, but and what do you do with that information?
Mr. Hughes.
I don't have the exact figure in front of me. We could get that for you after in terms of what you asked, the first part of your question. We do use a third party, though, that does do testing for us to double check to make sure that we're checking the IDs as well. And that's right across all of our channels, whether it's our home delivery, whether it's the agency stores, et cetera. And all of our employees are trained at the same standard in terms of what to look for. So if you are, and the cut line in terms of age is 30 or less. So if you look like you're under 30, you're going to get checked. It hasn't applied for me in a long time. I'm waiting for just one of them to ID me just so I feel a little bit special, but it's probably not going to happen. But we do take it very, very serious for sure.
MLA Lachance.
It would be great to have those figures. And then I guess we'll wait for the number, but do you receive reports of violations, and what do you do with that information?
Mr. Hughes.
So our stores take it, I'm going to give the example of our store network. They take it very serious. I won't say they're competitive, but they are friendly competitive. So they have targets in terms of what they need to achieve. And again, that third party can validate it. So it's checking the checker, so to speak. And I can tell you that if there is one that gets through, it is managed with a lot of due diligence. So it's documented. If it's one of our employees, there's performance coaching. If it's one of our agency stores, they could be in jeopardy of actually losing their contract. And if it's in our home delivery option, the vendor that does that, our third party, could also be in jeopardy of losing the contract. So we have that written into our legal agreements with the agency stores and through our home delivery options. And at the store level, it's one that we can really coach quite quickly. So the stores are aware, the managers are aware, and they can actually lose points off of their scorecard, which is very significant if they have these breaches.
MLA Lachance. MLA LeBlanc.
No.
Sorry.
How many minutes do I have?
Oh, you have less than a minute.
Okay. Maybe we'll return to this question in our second round. But I'm wondering, has there been an evaluation of the home delivery service?
Mr. Hughes.
Yes, there has been, and we'll probably have to circle back to this because I'm going to run out of time, but yes.
You have 30 seconds left.
30 seconds. I don't know if I can answer your question in 30 seconds, but yes, we have done some post evaluation since launch.
MLA Lachance, any 10 seconds?
Are the results available?
Mr. Hughes.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
Okay, I'll call order. We're 2 seconds away. Order. We'll now move over to the PCs for questioning. MLA Sheehy-Richard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to start off with back to the, it's been 5 years since legalization of marijuana and cannabis, I guess. But I've visited some local cannabis producers, and, you know, the startup costs, and after 5 years, they're still struggling, a lot of these producers. So I'm just wondering if you could elaborate or give me a little insight of what the cannabis sector in Nova Scotia is looking like these days and into the future. I don't know if that's the department or Mr. Hughes.
Mr. Hughes.
Thank you. We work quite closely with the local cannabis producers as well. I can report to the committee that they've just recently started their own association as well. So we help them get that off the ground and running. And again, that will allow us to keep those open communication channels to share industry trends and et cetera. It is a big investment for folks that are producing cannabis legally. And there's a lot of Health Canada guidelines that they have to follow. I can tell you that the launch in Nova Scotia overall, the original launch was extremely successful, and that would not have been as successful if it wasn't for our local producers. So we know that they do very, very well at our store level, for sure. Currently today, there is 61 suppliers that we deal with in total, and 15 of those suppliers are here in Nova Scotia. And it fluctuates a little bit, but they represent anywhere from 25 to 30% of our overall business, and that has been increasing year over year.
MLA Sheehy-Richard.
And you were talking about elections and the Proudly Nova Scotian, and you also mentioned during that answer that you had some stakeholder engagement. I'm just wondering if you could expand a little bit on what that engagement was and what work was involved with that.
Mr. Hughes?
Thank you. And I should point out to the committee, it was actually the NSLC that asked the question that we should probably slow down in the process. We wanted to make sure that we got it right, and we wanted to make sure that if there was any other ideas out there that was even more improved of what we thought we had, we would sure like to borrow or steal them in a very polite way. So there's been a lot of collaboration with the two teams in terms of what Nova Scotians' expectations are of local. And it's been very open and transparent. So, and we could make that information available too in terms of what our customers are telling us, is in terms of what they see as local.
That would be most helpful. MLA Sheehy-Richard.
And I guess my other question around Proudly Nova Scotian, or whatever that campaign's going to look like, can you talk a bit about any other initiatives that maybe, you know, I have 3 vineyards and all kinds of hops and all kinds of this local product that I see. Is there any other initiatives that you have maybe that would promote these local producers?
Mr. Hughes.
Thank you. Yeah, we do a lot with the local vendors, and I think the most important thing is sharing insights and customer information so they can pivot quickly with their business. As I mentioned earlier, every local vendor gets at least one SKU, and I should mention to the committee, you know, if you get on all of our shelves and all of our stores, it's a big demand on a business. So we have to spend a lot of our time actually working with the vendor to make sure they're ready for that trajectory when it hits. And we have lots of vendors that are great news stories, in my opinion, where they started with one SKU and a handful of employees, and now they're employing 80 to 100 individuals in the province and doing upwards of $15 to $16 million in sales with the NSLC. So it's one that we're very proud of, and there's a lot of interaction with local vendors. One of the things that we did set up recently was to have one point of contact. So we are so big and large. If you're starting out very, very small, you know, from your garage or basement and into a fixed facility, we can be a little bit overwhelming because of our size and who you should deal with. So one of the decisions that we made as a management team was to have one point of contact for local. It makes it easy. They know who they are, the phone number, they can reach out, and then that individual can quarterback anything, whether it's from a you know, customer inquiry to insights to how do you get on our shelves. And we do have very easy to read manuals of how to get products on our shelves. So there's a lot of interaction. So not just through the associations, but even just visits with local vendors one-on-one. I participate and probably 15 to 20 of them a year. And we will do upwards of 80 to 100 formal and informal touch base points with local vendors in the run of a fiscal year.
MLA Sheehy Richard, 15
And-
minutes.
How many?
15.
Okay, just have one quick question, then I'm going to pass it to my colleague, if I didn't just lose it. Oh, you had mentioned that some of this is going to be seen, and I can't remember when you said, is it coming this spring? Is that when you, I can't remember which one had said. I just wonder if you could remind me of that date.
Mr. DePercio?
Thank you. Just to clarify, the Proudly Nova Scotian banner already exists in our store, so we've been using that for quite some time. It's a well-recognized program within the NSLC. The Auditor General recommendation really spoke to the criteria within which we assigned particular products to that category. So really, that was the focus of the customer research, was really to narrow down exactly from the customer perspective what is considered local, and that's what will qualify to be put under that banner. So the program itself is in existence, and this is really applying the new criteria to that program. And as Greg said, we are kind of monitoring what was happening with Nova Scotia Loyal. We've kept ongoing engagement, and we realize that we can now proceed. They're supportive of our efforts in this area, and we plan to launch this probably in the spring of 2024. We have to consider our alignment with other launches that we do within our retail network.
Good. MLA Barkhouse.
Thank you, Chair. And I know you touched on this for a couple of seconds earlier, but we note that a number of the recommendations have to do with training for employees responsible for retailing and refresher training. Can you share with us what improvements have been made with regards to training? And that would be to Mr. Hughes.
Mr. Hughes.
Thank you. It was certainly time to evolve the documentation that we had. There's some legacy items there that had to be more modernized for sure, which we've done. And then as I mentioned earlier in my comments earlier to the committee, it now goes across all channels even more in depth with clear expectations of what those channels have to accomplish in terms of social responsibility.
MLA Barkhouse.
Thank you. So this one's for the Deputy Minister Dean. How is the Department of Financing ensuring that NSLC is conducting their business and operations in a way that benefits Nova Scotians?
Deputy Dean.
Thank you for the question. I would say that the governance framework ensures that the operations of the NSLC benefit Nova Scotians. So on an annual basis, we receive a business plan from the NSLC, and we have an opportunity to provide input and ensure that their objectives are aligned with the objectives of government around sales of liquor, cannabis through the NSLC. And as well, I sit on the board as a non-voting member, but on a regular basis, as feedback might be required, or if there are questions that NSLC has of the shareholders' position on certain issues, I'm able to provide feedback and make sure that that's reflected again in the business plan and in the future operations of NSLC. So I would say that we work very collaboratively. We have a good relationship, and that's only gotten stronger, I think, since the report has come out from the AG and the recommendations have been acted on. And you know, the NSLC is providing safe sales of these products to Nova Scotians, and they're doing it in a responsible manner and in a way that generates revenue, and then those revenues are used to fund programs and services that Nova Scotians need. So I think that, you know, the framework that exists, the way they operate, has been strengthened, and I think it continues to move forward in an effective way.
MLA Barkhouse, you have just over 10 minutes.
It was very nice to see everyone shake their head when the Deputy Minister said that your connection has grown stronger since the AG's report. So that is fantastic. I rather enjoyed that. Can you, Deputy Minister, can you discuss how we as a government determine whether new product and business proposals from the NSLC can or are in the best interest of our province?
Deputy Dean.
Thank you. Well, I think the example of cannabis is probably a really strong indicator of how government works with the NSLC in order to ensure that the implementation of a new product, because as you know, we look back to when cannabis was introduced, it's federally regulated, and the provinces had to determine how they were going to regulate it and distribute it within their own regimes, whether they were going to establish a whole new network or how they were going to ensure the safe sale of cannabis that had just been legalized. So, you know, consultations with NSLC around that were critical in the early days, and so I would say that it is a good working relationship that enables us to look at where there might be new opportunities and then how those could be handled, marketed, distributed with an organization that we have like the NSLC that has strong experience in selling products that have restrictions around those and making sure that our minors don't receive them. So socially responsible manner. And I would also say that throughout, you know, we have the kind of relationship where if there are ideas and innovations that NSLC sees and wants to pursue, that we discuss them and we determine whether or not it's something that you know, the shareholder supports. And I think in most cases we have that kind of collaborative relationship that we can explore those together. The business plans, the rationale, the analysis that the NSLC does when they bring forward an idea is, you know, it's grounded in fact, and we're able to look at that and determine whether or not, as a shareholder, as a government, we think it's appropriate.
MLA Barkhouse?
Thank you, Chair. And on a side note, back in June, I was ID'd at the liquor store buying a bottle of wine. But in all fairness, I was wearing sunglasses and a hat, so they are definitely doing their job. Can you give us an update on the progress towards outstanding recommendations? I know I would like to hear just a little more in depth, and that would be to Mr. Hughes, I think.
Mr. Hughes.
I'm glad. First of all, I'm glad you were ID'd, and it's the oldest trick in the book with the sunglasses and the hat. So not our first time. Yeah, in terms of your question around what's outstanding, really the ones that are still outstanding, we believe that are going to be completed and closed quite quickly. And those, as mentioned earlier, just a lot of discussion with other stakeholders outside of the NSLC. It took some time, and there was a change in government since that the original our general report. So quite honestly, with a bit of the newness factor, the process was a little bit slower, but certainly moving in the right direction.
MLA Barkhouse?
So I am actually going to pass this on to MLA Young.
MLA Young.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question to Mr. Hughes, and perhaps I'll let you finish what you started before. What steps does NSLC take to ensure responsible sale of cannabis in Nova Scotia and to ensure the products are kept into the hands of minors?
Mr. Hughes.
So very similar process as we have been discussing on the alcohol side of the business. Processes are the same, identical, in terms of making sure that it is not sold to minors.
MLA Young.
How does NSLC work to address prevention and education relating to alcohol or cannabis addictions?
Mr. Hughes.
I will pass this one over to Deputy Dean.
Deputy Dean.
Thank you. So, you know, we work very closely with the departments, with education, Department of Education, with mental health and addictions, Department of Health, you know, to ensure that we do whatever we can to protect our youth and to ensure that these products are used responsibly. There are education programs that have been developed, and I know that the NSLC supports those and also plays a key role because they are at the front face of the sale of those products. So, in addition to programming through schools and those sorts of things, we also have, the strength of NSLC's programs at the front face where the products are sold.
5 minutes. MLA Young.
Back to Mr. Hughes. Just wondering if you could tell us on ways that you engage with customers for like a satisfactory experience, and I'm kind of interested to hear what kind of feedback you're hearing.
Mr. Hughes.
We are very interactive with our customers on a regular basis. So we do have we'll call it an advisory panel that people can volunteer, and a lot of the communications through surveys that we do online. There's thousands and thousands of Nova Scotians that participate in that, so they're always open to tell us feedback. I think the most important number I'm going to give you, and one that we should be proud of as Nova Scotians, and particularly from a retailing standpoint, is in these surveys, we ask them how happy they are. And it fluctuates between 92 and 93%, and that are extremely satisfied with the service that they get, with the distribution model. We ask questions from every angle because, quite honestly, we need to stay relevant and we don't want to ever be put on cruise control. So if you know any retailers, those are world-class numbers. Like they would strive to hit those types of figures. The only time that we've seen a bit of a dip was in, I can't remember which wave of COVID. We were restricted to having 5 people in our store at a time, which we managed. We dipped to 89% satisfied. But I can tell you since then it's gone back up to the 92, 93% range. So it's a model that as Nova Scotians we should be proud of, because if that number was to slip, then we're doing something wrong.
MLA Young.
That's really good feedback numbers, percentage that's really high. I'm wondering, perhaps you could tell us like how you decide on what products NSLC will carry and sell.
Mr. Hughes.
As I mentioned earlier, customers, shoppers vote with their wallets, and we share insights with big and small vendors. So if you're a giant beer company, we would sit down with you a number of times throughout the year to compare insights and customer trends, not just in our own province, but in Canada and even throughout the U.S. and other parts of the world as well. And on the local side, it's more interaction in terms of what customers want and with that local flair or twist to it. We're extremely transparent when it comes to what goes on our shelves, and I believe Mr. DiPersio mentioned it earlier. There's clear documentation of what goes on and how you get there, and there's also clear documentation if we are to remove products, and those are typically products that the customers are not interested in.
MLA Young.
So thank you, Madam Chair.
2 minutes.
So we have a federal excise tax that's going to be placed on, that's going to impact prices of NSLC's customers. And I'm just wondering if, like, how do you anticipate this excise tax will impact, I guess, prices or the customers buying?
Mr. Hughes.
Yes, so I'll actually pass this to Carolyn Duchesne.
Ms. Duchesne.
Thank you. The excise tax started, so we've had excise tax for many years, but the federal government started increasing that excise tax to the CPI rate in 2018. And so every year we would expect about what that CPI rate was. Last year that CPI rate was much bigger than usual at 6.3%, I think. And so the federal government decided to bring it back down to 2%. So again, we change prices twice a year. Our expectation is for the federal government to follow the original rule and to increase to the CPI rate in April coming. The thing is, CPI, excise is, the calculation is based on the volume of alcohol in products that we have, that we sell. So if you take a regular beer, for example, at 6% volume of alcohol, or spirits at 40, the impact of excise.
Order. Sorry, Madame Duchesne, we're just, we've gone through the time for the PCs that was allotted. Each caucus will have 7 minutes, beginning with the Liberal caucus. MLA McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So when it comes to alcohol and alcoholism, Nova Scotia has the highest, or one of the highest. The latest stats I see show the highest level of alcoholism in Canada. The third highest level of hospitalization due to alcoholism is the only two provinces and territories that are above the national average is the Northwest Territories and BC. So we clearly have a drinking problem / issue here in Nova Scotia. While it's great to see how successful NSLC has been and the amount of money that's being produced from NSLC, we do know that some, if not a large portion of that money, is causing very serious damage to families and homes across Nova Scotia. So I'd like to know specifically how much money from that profit is earmarked, not into general revenue, but is specifically earmarked for addictions and alcoholism treatment here in Nova Scotia.
Deputy Dean.
Thank you for the question. So the NSLC profits are not earmarked in any particular way. They are sent into the General Revenue Fund, and from there, decisions are made at budget around allocations so that we can ensure that money goes where it needs to go. And the Department of Addictions and Mental Health is an important area of focus for this government. It was a newly formed department, and its budget is over $300 million. So it exceeds the revenues of NSLC, or the net profit of NSLC, I should be clear. So, I want to say I understand, the challenges profoundly. There are obvious issues that are related to addiction of many substances, and unfortunately, there are Nova Scotians who do need help. And so with the focus on this specific department, programs are being developed to try to provide the help that those people need. So I would say that not earmarking it actually gives us the ability to invest more than what the net profit is of the NSLC, and make sure that Nova Scotians get the help that they may need if they are addicted to harmful substances.
MLA McGuire.
So respectfully, I will say that the cost of alcoholism and addiction in Nova Scotia is much higher than $300 million a year. So the Department of Mental Health and Addiction may have a budget of $300 million, but the cost in the justice system, the cost in community services, the cost in healthcare is much, much, much higher than $300 million a year. And this is coming from someone who has been in a family that was broken up because of alcoholism, has been in many foster homes that were broken up because of alcoholism, whose family is rampant with alcoholism, and I've seen the effects firsthand, as unfortunately a large percentage of Nova Scotians have seen. So to say that it's not earmarked and that's a good thing, I wouldn't agree with that. I think that on an education level, like some of that money could be earmarked on an education level to start really educating our children at a young age the dangers of alcohol. And we do it a little bit, but the numbers clearly show that when it comes to alcohol, the message isn't getting through. When we talk to police officers and law enforcement officers, one of the most common things I hear from them is the amount of drinking and driving that goes on in Nova Scotia, in particular, a little bit outside in the urban core and outside in rural Nova Scotia. So it's not just a rural issue, and it's not just an urban issue. It's everywhere. And this is, I saw some looks over there, but the area that I represent is pretty well split up into rural and urban. Sambro's as rural as you get, and Spryfield is as urban as it gets. So I would say that while we like to tap ourselves on the back and say we're doing some good things, I don't think we've gone far enough. And so you did say that there are initiatives and programs out there. There's new initiatives and programs out there. Specifically, what programs are out there that are being funded, new programs that are being funded that are battling the epidemic of alcoholism that we have in this province, and how much money is being spent, because we know a large amount of money is being spent to advertise alcohol in this province and to promote alcohol in this province. So on the other side of it, what programs are out there that are doing harm reduction?
Minute and a half, Deputy Dean.
Thank you for the question. And, and I in no way would want to minimize the seriousness of issues related to alcoholism in the province. What I can tell you is I can get you some further information on that. I don't have those figures with me, but we can certainly follow up for you.
MLA McGuire.
If you could table that and send that to the committee, that'd be great. I mean, obviously, we want to. It's one of those things where it's a balancing act, right? We want to be able to promote our amazing wine and alcohol and spirits that we have here in Nova Scotia, but at the same time, alcohol is doing irreversible damage to our families and to our friends. So I want to make sure that while we're supporting the industry, at the same time, the proper support is out there, and I actually think it's a failure from all parties that we don't properly support people that are families are falling apart because of alcoholism. And a lot of times when it comes to addiction, we just act like it's their problem and not anyone else's. So that's it, Madam Chair. I'll leave it open and let her, if they want to have, how many seconds?
20.
If you want 20 seconds, Ms. Dean, if you want to say something.
Deputy Dean, is there anything further you'd like to add there?
20 seconds.
Nope. Okay, well then we'll move on to the NDP questioning with MLA LeBlanc.
Well, thank you very much. This has been a good discussion so far, and yeah, lots of food for thought. I want to go back to just the question on the agencies, boards, and commissions that we started with, actually. So just because I don't know this, actually, is it the Department of Finance and Treasury Board that does all of the recommending to the Executive Council, or is it various different departments, depending on like what the board or agency or commission is?
Deputy Dean?
Thank you, Chair. It's dependent on what applies to your department. So we would make the recommendations for NSLC and any of the boards or commissions that we have oversight for. So it is department specific.
Okay.
MLA LeBlanc.
Thanks. And I just want to go back to this idea that like the minister ultimately is the person who signs off on the recommendation that comes to the HR committee. And so that's like, and not just with this government, with any government, it's kind of inherently political or could be inherently politicized if it's the minister that makes the recommendation. So I'm wondering if, in your experience as deputy minister, or in your experience in this department, or if you've been in other departments, has there ever been a contemplation of like when the minister gets the gets to that point where there's the recommendation going forward, if they don't see the names of the candidates but only see the file of the candidate? Is that ever been discussed? Because to me, as a member of the Public Accounts Committee, it seems like a good idea for democracy.
Deputy Dean?
Thank you for that. In my experience, no, it hasn't been contemplated that the candidates would come forward unidentified. And I've been in many departments where we have had that, those experiences. But
MLA LeBlanc.
Another quick question I have is this the local campaign that Mr. DiPercio, is that right? DiPercio, I can't see your thing, was talking about. Why do the customers, I just want to get my head around this. Why do the customers get to decide what's local? Like that seems a very subjective question. Like, because if I'm from, Cheticamp, I'm going to be like, hyperlocal is like the brewery in Cheticamp. Or if I'm from Ontario, I'm going to be like, Canadian is local. So how, is there not like a set guideline of what Nova Scotia considers made in Nova Scotia, or what's a local product?
Mr. DePersia.
Yeah.
It's a very, very good question, and I would say, and I sat in on one of the focus groups that we had with customers and also local industry members. So we had producers in the province sat in on the focus groups to hear what our customers had to say, and it's actually surprising the differences and nuances that come into play. So, for example, for wine, some people thought that if the grapes are grown in Nova Scotia, that makes it a Nova Scotian product, whereas for other consumers, it was less of a difference. So there was actually, by commodity beer, there was different elements. Are you brewing in the province? Is your head office in the province? How many do you employ in the province? So we talked about a lot of different sort of elements to the customer, and they actually gave very divergent feedback, I'm going to say, by category. So what they considered local actually did differ depending on whether you were talking about wine, beer, or spirits. And so that actually created some complexities to actually determine the criteria we're finally going to land on in terms of, placing a product under that banner within the stores.
Emily LeBlanc, 3 minutes.
Great. And so, but are you looking at other things other than the focus groups? Or are you looking at best practice? Are you looking at, environmental concerns, for instance, like how far something's being shipped, what the carbon footprint is on that kind of thing when you're making the criteria?
Mr. DePersia?
The criteria is inherently going to be a customer-driven criteria because we're a merchant, we're a retailer, more than anything else. And so we want to make sure that if we're putting something on that banner, we want research to decide from the customer's perspective to dictate what should go under that. So it's primarily a customer-driven initiative.
Emily LeBlanc.
Well, I just want to go on the record to say that I think a further look might be good. I think I appreciate getting listening to the customers, but I also think that in terms of why we want to promote local purchasing and supporting local industry, that there could be some objective criteria that could be paid attention to. Speaking of local, I just want to ask one more question. I want to direct your attention, I'm sure you've seen this many times, the Craft Brewers Association, the 2021 update. One of their recommendations is the priority 2 issue, which is this retail sales markup allocation. The craft brewers are suggesting and advocating for that RSMA to be eliminated or strongly reduced. They have talked about the fact that the funds, and the NSLC has confirmed that the funds that are collected on that tax are not material to fulfilling the mandate of the NSLC, and yet if the funds weren't collected, they would make a huge difference to the local brewing industry in terms of expansion, employing more people, blah, 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 blah. So I'm wondering if this is being looked at and if you have any update on that.
I'm looking for a nod here. Deputy Dean?
I will assure you, yes, it is being looked at, and yes, we've had meetings with the Craft Brewers Association as well, so we're aware of their concerns around the RSMA, and I'm going to ask Leilani to elaborate a little bit more on this one.
Yeah, so
ADM Kamaranayka.
Perfect.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to give a little bit of a background on the RSMA. The RSMA is charged when a local producer sells from their own manufacturing premises. It's 5%, in contrast to when they sell through the NSLC and the NSLC markup is used. From a policy perspective, that 5%...
Order. Sorry, we have now concluded with the NDP questioning, and I will pass it over to Emily Young.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Shane, could I let you finish your answer about the excise tax from before?
Madame Duchesne?
Certainly. Yes, so I was saying that the excise tax is applied on the volume of alcohol, so obviously between a product at 6% alcohol to 40, the impact would be different. But the percentage is only on the volume of alcohol. So if, I don't know, if half a cent per volume of alcohol is applied on a product, the CPI rate is on top of that. So it's very, very small, it's a small component of an overall cost. For bottled wine, it could be less than 10 cents, for example. So I think I answered the question.
Emily Young.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll pass it off to my colleague, Emily Taggart.
Emily Taggart.
Thank you, Chair. Last week, we heard from officials from the Office of Equity and Anti-Racism and learned about Nova Scotia's commitment to becoming an accessible province by 2030. This is for the NSLC. Can you tell us about your accessibility plan, please?
Mr. Hughes.
Yes, great question. So we would be under the same umbrella of that program. So all of our premises will have to be to a certain standard. I can also tell you that we've launched a diversity and inclusion program at the NSLC just over a year ago. We also have people from the community that can also participate in that as well. So we have one gentleman who's actually worked with our in-house folks going around to some of our stores to see, are we truly a leader when it comes to having a retail store that's accessible. So we're taking it very serious, and we'll hit all the timelines that are mandated as well.
Emily Taggart.
Thank you very much. If you, as well to NSLC, can you tell us a little bit about career opportunities available at our NSLC stores and the economic impact these stores have on our communities?
Mr. Hughes? 4.5 minutes.
We are one of the Nova Scotia's largest employers, as I mentioned before, at 1,800 plus employees. I think it's something that a model that we can be proud of. We are in every community, and quite honestly, communities kind of look at, you become a community if you have a post office, a bank, and a liquor store. So we know how important. We know how important that is in terms of access to our distribution of all our products. So, yeah.
Mr. Taggart.
Thank you. And so on that, can you tell us some more about your NSLC Community Fund and how the NSLC supports charitable and nonprofit organizations?
Mr. Hughes.
It's a great question. This is one that we're extremely proud of. We're basically an avenue or a venue that can obtain community funds, and I'll give you some examples. Last year, our source of funds at Till, or at our retail network, customers donated $435,000. Our suppliers, our vendors had donated just over $450,000, and the NSLC's part of that is about $382,000. So I'll give you some examples of where those donations actually went, and it's all very open and transparent, and there's a committee that looks at this, so it takes any biases out. But one of our most passionate, with our Employees' Choice, one of the most passionate one of all is the IWK. And so last year we raised $500,000. I can tell you this year, we just went through the campaign, we were a record high $685,000. And again, that comes from our customers and our vendors in terms of partnerships. Other major donations that happened last fiscal year, Feed Nova Scotia was $175,000. Make-A-Wish, which used to be Children's Wish, it was $45,000. MAD, Feed Nova Scotia, and Habitat, there was $31,000, or $311,000, I should say. So our Community Investment Fund is $140,000, and that just recently has impacted in a positive way 13 organizations.
Mr. Taggart.
That's great stuff, and so thank you very much for that. So what does NSLC do to monitor their environmental footprint or environmental impact?
Mr. Hughes?
Great question. We take that very seriously. I can tell the committee that we are soon going to launch our next 5-year strat plan. You'll see an even more focus around ESG, and in particular under ESG, the environmental footprint. We are in the business of selling cold beverages, so we have to look at unique ways to offset that. Recently, through our board, we are looking at alternate uses of energy, for example, again, to offset that footprint, because we know our customers have a certain expectation when you walk into a store, but we need to make sure that we evolve and challenge. And quite honestly, the next generation of NSLC customers want to know what's on our shelves and what that impact is. So we need to stay current and evolve like everyone else.
MLA Taggart?
How much?
30 seconds.
Oh, how much of the annual revenue growth that we are seeing is driven by local product sales? What's your expectation for the future?
Mr. Hughes? 20 seconds.
20 seconds. I will have to give the break. I won't be able to give you the breakdown in 20 seconds, but I do have the numbers. Yep.
Perhaps if you, we will send a letter to you after the committee with any outstanding items, so you could include it in your response back. Thank you very much. So the time for questioning has elapsed. I would like to thank our witnesses for coming in today. Do we have any closing remarks? Deputy Dean? Mr. Hughes. Thank you very much. We will take a 2-minute recess, allowing people to leave, and then we'll continue with committee business. Thank you. We're in recess. Order. Committee is now back to order. So I'm just going to move some of our items around here to ensure that we actually have some topics for the meetings coming up. From the record of decision from the September 20th subcommittee, members have been provided with the record of decision from the September 20th subcommittee meeting. At last week's meeting, the committee began discussions regarding the topic, Canada-Nova Scotia Child Care Agreement, programming impacts to date and funding impact to the province's finances. The committee clarified the issue they wished to discuss and agreed it is interested in both the Canada-Nova Scotia Canada-wide Early Learning and Childcare Agreement and the Canada-Nova Scotia Early Learning and Childcare Agreement. However, a motion was not made relating to selecting the topic or witnesses, so I will open the floor now for discussion. Mr. Young.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to make a motion that the topic, the Canada-Nova Scotia Child Care Agreement, programming impacts to date and funding impact to the province's finances, with witnesses being the Deputy Minister of Education, Early Childhood Development.
Any discussion? MLA McGuire?
Can you just repeat what the topic was? What was the title of that topic again? Childcare?
It is Canada-Nova Scotia Child Care Agreement, programming impacts to date and funding impact to the province's finances.
Okay. So, Madam Chair?
MLA McGuire?
So would it be reasonable to, because it's impact to the province's finance, would it be reasonable to ask for the Department of Finance to be here too if we're discussing the finances along with, so it literally says in the topic, the impact to the province's finances. So would it be reasonable to have the Deputy Minister or somebody from the Department of Finance to discuss the impact that these agreements have on their finances? Because obviously it has a massive impact on the finances of the province, because part of it is being covered by the federal government, so that's money that's not being spent on the provincial side. So I'm just wondering, for, you know, just to be kind of fair, I think it'd be fair to hear from the Department of Finance to say, hey, like, this is the kind of impact it's having on our finances, considering it's in the title.
MLA LeBlanc?
Well, I just think, Madam Chair, that if we're going to have this as a topic, we also need to hear from the receivers of the funding. I think it's simply not enough, and it's irresponsible of a Public Accounts Committee to only call representatives from the department when we're looking at the agreement literally is a funding agreement with organizations on the ground providing a service to Nova Scotians. And so therefore I would like to amend the motion and add a representative from Childcare Now Nova Scotia, a representative from the Association of Early Childhood Educators, and this one I feel less strongly about, a representative from the federal government federal department.
Okay, so now we have an amendment on the floor. Any discussion on the amendment? MLA McGuire?
Yeah, I mean, I think the last time we had a little bit of a discussion around this, and it's same with the when we had a discussion around the climate change topic also. The opinion of the NDP was that, you know, we wanted to have stakeholders here, including the federal government, who are massive stakeholders in this, and they voted it down because essentially what, I mean, I don't know word for word what was said, but I can't remember word for word what was said, but essentially it was like, we just want to keep the provincial witnesses and we want to keep the government witnesses here, and it was agreed upon by both the PCs and the NDP. And now with this topic, it seems, you know, kind of going what they voted against last time. So I would just say that, you know, in spirit of cooperation, I think the witnesses that were put forward are good witnesses, and you know, let's vote on the main motion and get some topics here.
MLA LeBlanc.
Well, I just would also, I forgot to mention in my comments when I made my amendment to the motion that I am taking those suggestions from the record of decisions which came from subcommittee. So at subcommittee, it was agreed that those were important witnesses. It was voted on. I can say that because this is the record of decisions. And now it appears that the government is trying to, or the government members are asking to deplete the list of witnesses. And so, of course, we can't discuss the discussion we had in camera at the subcommittee. So I want to hear, if we are not going to add these witnesses, I want to hear a very good reason why we shouldn't have these folks at this committee meeting.
So I call the motion.
No,
If there's any more discussion.
there's more discussion, so I do believe Mr. Young would like to speak.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. If you look historically at the function of the public accounts, it is government witnesses and government departments. I guess with the exception of perhaps crown corporations that may come as witnesses. So to have these external groups, I think it'd be more fitting of other committees. But in order to look at the finances, the spending, I mean, the department is the best witness to have.
Emily LeBlanc.
Respectfully, Madam Chair, that is fundamentally untrue. If I have been on the Public Accounts Committee for several years. My colleague from the Liberal Party has been on for much longer than me, and I literally have just returned from a professional development conference where I sit with other Public Accounts Committees from across the provinces and territory and the federal government, and it is not true that the only witnesses that are called traditionally are government witnesses. I heard from several members of public accounts committees from across the province, and in fact, have heard from on several occasions the chair of the UK Public Accounts Committee, and that is not the way public accounts committees must function. So, if we are talking about government spending, and this is not a partisan issue, if we are here to monitor government spending and to make sure that the public accounts are being spent in the way that they were meant to be spent, then we cannot only hear from the department that doles out the money. We must hear from the government partners, and let us not forget that the government often talks about their community partners who are on the receiving end of that funding agreement to deliver services to Nova Scotians. I think if you asked any Nova Scotian with a stake in the childcare system, that is, someone who has a child in the childcare system, has just had a child in the childcare system, or is about to have one, they would want to hear how that funding agreement is doing from the perspective of the people that care for their children. I think it is an affront to the people of Nova Scotia who are relying on this program to not hear from those people.
So I will just say that while it is true that this committee is not a place where we are supposed to be focusing on policy, what we have heard over and over at successive Public Accounts Committee national conferences is that it can also focus on, is the program meeting the stated goals? Is the money being spent appropriately? So there is room to bring in people who are not necessarily from government, taking into account if government has stated these are the goals, are they being met? Is the money being spent appropriately? So I just want to make sure that people understand what's been said at these national conferences, because not all of our members have had the opportunity to attend them. Mr. Young.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With respect, I mean, when you look at the public accounts across the province and across the world, I mean, there's different traditions that are rooted into the way that each committee functions. And I'm not disagreeing with MLA LeBlanc regarding what parents want to hear or important topics. It's just the public accounts is not, this isn't the vehicle for those witnesses. And I'd almost like to see if maybe MLA LeBlanc could table some of the external witnesses that would have been here historically in the public accounts. Because I hear often that, there's lots of times there's non-government witnesses. But just to back to the point here is the government, they fund lots of organizations, they fund lots of groups. The best people to speak about the finances would be representatives within the Department of Education and Early Childhood Development. That's all I have. Thank you.
MLA Lachance, then MLA McGuire.
So, I mean, I am a new member to the Public Accounts Committee. And, when I think about, government doesn't act alone. The government doesn't act in a vacuum. This is a great example of that. So, in fact, the topic is not just finances. The topic is also programming impacts to date. And in this specific case, I don't know how we could possibly understand how the program is doing without hearing from the partners who are actually implementing the program on the ground. It's not the Department of Education and Early Childhood Development that's actually implementing the programming under this agreement. And so to not have them here, I don't understand how we could really see how this program is doing.
Emily McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so I'm going to be quick because we need to have a vote on this so we can get some topics. But the truth is that this isn't about, what I'm starting to realize after 10 years of being on this committee, is that this isn't about gathering information, and it's not about getting the right people in the room. It's about getting the right partisan people in the room and hearing what you want to hear. And the reason I say that is because, again, one of the members talked about what came in and out of what's come out of subcommittee, but the truth is some of the arguments that I made in subcommittee about who needs to be here and why they need to be here was voted down by both parties because they didn't want those witnesses there, because those witnesses may not have been favorable to their cause and to the messaging they want. So what I would say is this, we can sit here and argue all we want, but we need to get topics done. This is an important issue, especially around childcare. And I think, again, I would like to call the question.
Thank you. I will let MLA Barkhouse speak. MLA Barkhouse.
Thank you, Chair. MLAs have the opportunity to provide insight on policy through other mechanisms like law amendments, question period. The House is soon going to sit. That gives you ample opportunity. I want to call the question as well.
I will just note that the House sat for 13 days in the spring. That is not adequate time. So I will just say that as the chair. Ms. LeBlanc, I do want to make sure we do get some topics. So Ms. LeBlanc.
Yes. Thank you. My final comment is that fundamentally, this is my request, my amendment to this motion has nothing to do with policy. Policy is what's decided at the department and executive council, and then we, as the Public Accounts Committee, see if the money is being spent according to policy. So having folks from Childcare Nova Scotia or the Association of Early Childhood Educators has nothing to do with me wanting to put forward policy to the people of Nova Scotia. It is to ask those people whether or not the funding agreement is working for them. End of story. It has nothing to do with policy implementation. So, fine, call the question. I will vote for my amendment. It will get voted down, and then we'll move on. Okay. Great debate.
So we'll now we'll have the vote on the motion on the amendment, which is to, in addition to the Deputy Minister of Education and Early Childhood Development, on this topic, Canada-Nova Scotia Child Care Agreement, programming impacts to date and funding impact to the province's finances. We would also add a representative from Childcare Nova Scotia, Childcare Now Nova Scotia, a rep from the Association of Early Childhood Educators, and a representative from the federal government plan. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay? Nay. The motion is defeated. So we now move on to the motion made by Mr. Young, which was for the same topic, but to hear from the Deputy Minister of Education and Early Childhood Development. Any discussion? Mr. McGuire.
Is there any appetite or from the government side, because obviously we need a unanimous vote on this, instead of putting a motion forward to bring in someone from the Department of Finance to actually have a discussion about the impacts that this agreement, which is hundreds of millions of dollars of provincial tax money, has on the finances of the province, aka what is in the title of the actual topic.
Any discussion? Not seeing any discussion, so I'm going to call the question now. Mr. Taggart, would you like to discuss something?
Recess, 2 minutes.
You can have a 2-minute recess.
The partner we have can speak to the funding.
Committee is now back from recess. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. The motion is carried. We have another topic. Now, we will move on to the record of decision from October 4th. The topic was, the first one is, what I think,
Left on the floor.
was there?
Yeah.
Okay. The motion was left on the floor at last week's meeting for the topic climate change adaptation, EMO funding and preparedness for emergency disasters in Nova Scotia. Output-based pricing systems for the industry. The following witnesses would be called: the Executive Director of EMO, Deputy Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Deputy Minister of Environment and Climate Change, and Deputy Minister of Public Works. That was moved by Mr. Young. I will open the floor to discussion. MLA McGuire, I see you.
So it's important that we have a whole discussion around climate change and the impact on the EMO and Nova Scotians, obviously. We do know that when the witnesses are here, the government's going to continue to talk about the carbon tax, and negotiation of the carbon tax. So I would like to put a motion on the floor because, again, we need to have a full, honest, transparent discussion around all of this so that all our questions are answered on the finances of this province. And one of the things that's directly impacting the finances of this province is the carbon tax. So I would ask that somebody from the PMO, a representative from the PMO and or the Department of Environment and Climate Change be present.
Do you mean the federal department?
Federal government, yeah, federal environment and climate change be present, either here in person or via Zoom, to have this discussion around carbon tax, because inevitably this is what's going to happen, and the impact that it's having on the public finances of this province.
So I just want to clarify your motion. Is it an amendment to this particular one?
Yeah.
You want to add
witnesses.
in federal representation. Any discussion on the amendment? All those in favor of the motion, please say. Okay, so we're going to have a recorded vote on this particular amendment. So I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
MLA Barkhouse?
I'm sorry, pardon. I was just thinking out loud. It's no, but I think we should have called a recess before we did this.
Continue.
MLA Barkhouse?
She said no.
MLA Barkhouse?
Yes. Sorry.
Are you voting yes or are you voting no?
See, that's what are we on? Are we on the amendment or are we
We're
on the
amendment.
actual?
As I indicated, we're on the amendment. You said you were voting no.
No, sorry. I thought we.
MLA McGuire?
Yes.
MLA Lachance?
Yes.
MLA LeBlanc?
Yes.
MLA Sheehy Richard?
I'm so lost, I honestly don't know what we're voting on.
The amendment to
Which
add
was
a
to add-
representative from the PMO and a representative from the Federal Environment and Climate Change Department.
No.
Emily McDonald.
No.
Emily Taggart.
No.
Emily Young.
No.
And the chair.
Yes.
4 yeses, 5 noes.
So the amendment is defeated. Now we will move on to the main, to the motion that was previously moved by Mr. Young, which was to have the Executive Director of EMO, Deputy Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Deputy Minister of Environment and Climate Change, Executive Director of the Climate Change Division of Environment and Climate Change. Wait.
No, it's different on here. That's, yes. You moved it different from what's on.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
My apologies. A motion was left on last week's meeting for the topic climate change adaptation, EMO funding and preparedness for emergency disasters in Nova Scotia, output-based pricing for industry, the following witnesses be called: Executive Director of EMO, Deputy Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Deputy Minister of Environment and Climate Change, and Deputy Minister of Public Works. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. The motion is carried.
So now you can move on to reading assistance.
So now we're going to move on to the... Mr. Young?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to make a motion. I move that the topic of heating assistance rebate program, HARP, with the witnesses Service Nova Scotia Internal Services, Deputy Minister, or appropriate representatives.
Pardon me? Sorry.
I think you have that in your package there. So it would be the second one. It's what's listed there: Service Nova Scotia Internal Services, Deputy Minister, and appropriate representatives in reference to heating assistance rebate program, HARP. Mr. McGuire?
So I'm going to be a little bit of a stickler. I'm going to use the vice chair's kind of words against him for a moment here, if he doesn't mind. But in the past, when we've said appropriate witnesses, the vice chair has been he's been a stickler on that term, or the surprise guests, I'll say. So I would ask that the government clean up the witness list and specify who's going to be here as per their own recommendations to us when we put forward witnesses. One of the first things that the vice chair says is, appropriate witnesses, like we have to, I know he's, and not trying to pick a fight, but he's been very particular on who, the position, and where. So I would ask, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, so.
Mr. Young?
Yeah, just thank you, Madam Chair. I mean, the Deputy Minister would know the best people within the department to speak to this topic, so I'll leave it as is.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. The motion is carried. And then we had one more topic that came out of subcommittee, Department of Public, Capital District Health Infrastructure Projects, with witnesses being Department of Public Works, Deputy Minister of Finance and Treasury Board, Deputy Minister of Health and Wellness. Mr. Young.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The function of subcommittees to submit topics, and then the topics would be chosen from the submissions for the upcoming meetings. And so as this was an additional topic, I move that we table this topic to a future date, agenda setting date, for consideration. I'm tabling it for consideration in the next agenda setting.
MLA Lachance, I think you have something you would like to say.
I think, again, I'm one of the newest members of the committee, but one of the things that really struck me was that we hadn't put anything on the forward agenda to do with health. And as we know, this is the focus of this government and a critical issue for the people of Nova Scotia. I do feel, that this is really not a surprise nor controversial nor hard topic to bring forward, to think about, to see where the healthcare fix is at. And I really, with all due respect to the vice chair's concerns about process, I do feel like they're not particularly consistent. And certainly this shouldn't be a surprise. We've already discussed it. And I really feel like we should bring this topic forward.
Mr. McGuire.
Yeah, I think that the topic should come forward, but I will say that, again, if we're looking for consistency in this committee, then we have to follow specific rules. And this goes back to, we had individuals come in here for weeks on end, talk about a path forward, We should not be in this process week after week after week where we're bringing topics forward, witnesses forward, and this and that forward, and it's just all a mishmash of things. We had experts sit here for weeks on end and tell us how the proper committee should function, how this committee should properly function. And yet, we have yet to pass those guidelines, those rules and regulations. So I would say if the government and the opposition want to get past all this stuff, then maybe at our next meeting, we bring forward the path forward and we actually have a fulsome discussion about it and vote it in so that we don't have to do this time and time again and waste valuable time.
Order. Time for the committee has elapsed. Just so folks know, our next meeting is next week, and it will be in camera, October 18th, the Office of the Auditor General, a pre-hearing briefing, re-student housing needs and investments in affordable housing programming. And the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Now we have some time.